Mix It with Mike plugin of the week comes from the Plugin Alliance. It's the Bettermaker EQ232D. This is an actual hardware mastering compressor created in Warsaw, Poland, and it is mostly a passive EQ. There's a whole section of it that's a passive EQ, which is modeled after the EQP1A. And when we go through it, you'll see exactly why. Essentially, what you have here is a high-end EQ, mastering grade EQ that's emulated for the digital realm. Here, this was an actual hardware unit, so it's not something that is just out of nowhere. It's actually coming from the original EQ232P MK2 is the actual emulation or name of the original. Let's go over the whole surface of it here, kind of go through what the settings are, and let's kind of put it to some tests here to see if it lives up to its reputation. So what we have here is in the top left, well, actually just kind of going across the thing, there's a save preset, recall preset. So I'm not sure if this is a new thing for Plugin Alliance or if it's particular to this plugin. The usual A, B, C, D, copy, cut, copy, paste, or copy, paste, all of that sort of stuff, reset. And then you can actually work in MS mode, which is cool, or work in left, right, and then it gives you some left, right, inversions. So if you want to, do it that way, actually copying left to settings to right side or right settings to left side, etc. And then you can actually collapse the display. So if you're linked in stereo, then you don't need to look at both because that just simplifies the display, so you don't need to see it. Otherwise, what you get here is one singular EQ. You have a bypass section. This is a master bypass for the whole unit itself. You could put the high pass filter in, so you have a high pass filter that's right here, 24 dB per octave. There is EQ1, so there's two EQ sections that are right here in the middle. So these are full parametric EQs with a pretty broad range, 45 hertz up to 1K, 650 up to 15K. I think that's actually an extension from the original EQ, which I think only went up to 10K. And then you have a Q bandwidth controls here, boost and attenuation here. What's a little bit unusual about this, because the unit itself is designed to be controlled by a USB, so you would actually open up a plugin inside of your host, and you would you could do all the settings and store it in your DAW. So when you started it up, it would load up all the settings, but everything would be analog, but you'd be running it through digital control, so digitally controlled analog equalization unit, and high-end, no tubes in this, so they're not dealing with any kind of saturation. They're looking for much more of a transparent kind of sound, which is kind of what you go to a Pultec for, but Pultecs also have transformers and tubes as part of the audio stage as a way of kind of warming up the sound to keep it sounding from sounding cold. And what's really cool about this is they've captured the clarity and openness of the Pultec with the more transparent kind of effect, and that's so achieved, I think, in this particular plugin. I have never worked with the hardware unit, so full disclosure on that end, so I have no basis of comparison. But you have the two EQs, so you have bypasses for those two controls, and then you have the PEQ, which is basically the Pultec EQ, or the passive EQ, which you have here. So let's kind of go through all the individual settings here. We'll just kind of dive in a little bit just to so you could see. This is probably the most complex looking section here. What's funny is just the Q settings here. So actually, as you toggle through it or you go through any of the settings, one of their particular thing you're going to notice is over here, this is where the settings, so as you make the adjustment, you'll see them over here. So if I raise this up for a boost, you'll actually see the amount over here. So as I hold, click or put my cursor over the knob, you'll see that setting showing up over here, right? So I'll just kind of reset there. So this is the Q, the bandwidth of it. So actually, as you go wider there, it'll go out to 3. So that's just kind of a display, and that would give you the narrowest setting, right, which is a 5. And then let's see. What do we got here? And then our frequency selection here, boost and attenuation plus minus 15 dB. Same thing here with a second band. So you basically have low mid-band, upper mid-band that extends, actually extends well below that. So you could use it for individual instrumentation as well, which I think is a little bit more how I want to demonstrate it here rather than just a mastering situation. Here's the Pultec section. So the Pultec section essentially has the same boost attenuation thing. There's a lot of confusion about this. But you get the same, and I'll explain a little bit about this. So on the Pultec EQP, you're basically having a boost and attenuation, and it appears that it works on the same frequency. And there's a lot of confusion about that, but it's not true. The frequencies for the attenuation are slightly offset from the frequency and the boost. The other thing that is not common knowledge is that when you set the boost, say, to 3, and you set the attenuation to 3, if we just said that, oh, that's a shelving EQ 3 dB boost, right? The attenuation is not 3 dB. It's not as much. So when you work the two of them together, because the frequency is slightly offset, and you also get less of an attenuation for the same number or the same value that you put in, what you get is this resonance. You get this slight dip before the actual shelving curve. Then you have the shelving curve and a little bit of resonance before it kind of settles into the overall, flat shelf. And that resonance helps to create a focus around that frequency. And this is what Pultec is famous for. As you go through the different frequencies, you see 30, 60, 100, right? So you get those. So you have the up-down switches that allow you to get there all the way down to 20 hertz. And so that's that low section. Now, when you get to the high frequency section, there's a high frequency parametric. So you have the boost for that here. And then you have the Q curve for that here and the frequency select right here. So as you toggle through this, you go through the different, excuse me, that's this one here, right? So you go through the different frequency selections here, ranging from 3 kilohertz up to 16 kilohertz. And so you get your boost there, you get your bell width, bandwidth here, right? So you have that, and then you have the high frequency attenuation, which works here. So you have the attenuation knob, and then you have that 3 switch thing, which is 5, 10, and 20 kilohertz. So that's a shelf on the top end. So there's some tricks with this, because if you use the shelf here, like for example, if you wanted to do something where you want to tighten up the low end on something, you could actually use just the attenuation knob, set it to 20 or 30 hertz. And because it's on a shelf, you're basically getting a kind of semi high pass filter type of effect. And then you could just sort of sweep up the spectrum, and you can kind of clean up low end that way. So that's one way to use it. On the other side, you could do a similar thing and sort of bracket the higher frequencies by using the attenuation, and then you have the frequencies that you select here, 5, 10, and 20, as a way of sort of bracketing the top end. So you could work with particular instruments and use that as a way of bracketing, and then use the mid boost to kind of work. And that's kind of a helpful way of working with it. I mean, the most classic uses of the Pultec for something like this are like, kicks and snares and stuff like that. And, set this to 100 on a snare drum, set the boost, set the attenuation to kind of duck right in underneath it. You get this really nice ripple or resonance, and it almost like it creates like extra low end out of the almost like an artificial extra octave below the snare drum, which, usually snare drum frequencies are somewhere in the mid to upper 100s in terms of their fundamental frequency. So it adds like a little bit of extra body to it. Let's kind of go in and work with this. Oh, there's an output level control. So that's the basic bit there. And then you could basically, toggle between the left and the right side. So if you're operating them independently of each other, otherwise you have the link control like we're going to work here. And the mid side is actually quite cool. That's like also a great way to work. So let's just start here. Let's see, I have like a full mix. Let's just actually work with drums here. Let's kind of simplify this for a little bit and kind of wing it a little bit. So let's kind of work with the drums. So this is kind of a mixture of drums and bass, right? So when I make an adjustment, what's weird, as soon as I move the cursor over to here, the number goes away. Right, so what I want to do is I sort of want to buttress like the low end, see if I can thicken up the low end. So let me just kind of start with this at 60 hertz, do a little bit of a boost here on the low end, and let's see what I can dig out of that, and then maybe chase it with an attenuation. And then I want to kind of get rid of a little bit of this, like try to tuck a little bit of a low mid thing here. So let me see if I can, just looking over here, just as I'm adjusting this, I'm going to kind of pull this down into the mid 200s here for a second and do a little dip there. And then I'll kind of work the bandwidth here. All right, and then I'm going to work a little bit here on the top end. So let me just, I want to bring in a little bit of air. Let's just kind of throw this at 16K and see what we can dial up here. So that takes away some of that kind of low mid grit and then kind of opens it up a little bit. Kind of subtle, but you know, kind of, I guess I'm working this kind of more along the lines of like a mastering thing. There's also a guitar part, so let's just some kind of funky guitar parts. So let's kind of work on that a little bit, mix that in with the drums. So let's do this thing that I was talking about before here, where I can, let me just, for a second here, let's just kind of dial back here, go back here. And so I'm going to use that Pultec kind of like the way I was talking about before here, where I can sort of chase this with the attenuation. Maybe I'll do the same thing up on the top end here, so with the attenuation here. All right, so I'm losing a little bit of presence from it, but I'm doing that purposefully because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a little bit in here on the bell curve. Just to kind of tighten that up a little bit. So now when I mix this in with the bass, there's a little bit less muck between them. Right, this creates a nice little bit of separation in there, right? So let's go to this. There's also some keyboard parts. The keyboard parts do a variety of things, but there's kind of like a main organ part here. So one thing I like about this, and it helps me from screwing up my reviews, is that as soon as you touch any of these areas, it automatically turns the EQ for that band on, so you don't like pretend that you're hearing something that you're not. So I'm just going to clean up a little bit of the low end there just to kind of get that to work. I'm not sure I have a frequency here that I want to... Well, you know what? Here, let me just try this. Let me see if I can get a little bit of warmth out of it. But chasing it down here, right, so that it almost kind of creates, with the high pass filter, it's 60, so it kind of gives me a little bit of a bump there from 100 down to 60. And then maybe, I'm trying to use this Pultec, probably is maybe a bit too much, because I probably should boost something kind of more in the 600 range, I think. Work with a tight Q to kind of get that narrowed in. All right, so let's just see how that kind of plays in with these guys. It's almost kind of like a stemmed mastering kind of thing here. And we got a lead vocal. Let's kind of work the lead vocal in.
Me get up and me fresh up and say yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Me dress up with the best.
And my favorite things to do is here just to kind of turn up a little bit of 16K. Just got a little air to this.
Me get up and me fresh up and say yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Me dress up with the best up on me left yard. A straight positivity me manifest, and me know upon my blessings. Jah nah go press pause. Go down and hit tracks, that's it.
And then you can kind of tuck in, you know, like the low end here. Chase it with the attenuation.
Me get up and me fresh up and say yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Me dress up with the best up on me left yard. A straight positivity me manifest, and me know upon my blessings. Jah nah go press pause. Go down and hit tracks, that's the best part. Cliff line up a rhythm, me have a tune for bless hearts. Tell them how me feeling and what we dealing with. Revelation, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now go make nobody blow my eye. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine.
All right, just bring out a little bit more air. Very transparent EQ, right? You can really just hear just how, you know, the detail, the musicality of it, right? It's nothing sounds harsh or weird or...
Me get up and me fresh up and say yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Me dress up with the best up on me left yard. A straight positivity me manifest, and me know upon my blessings. Jah nah go press pause. Go down and hit tracks, that's the best part. Cliff line up a rhythm, me have a tune for bless hearts. Tell them how me feeling and what we dealing with. Revelation, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine.
All right, and now let's kind of work in some of the background parts. So there's like a whole background part here, hook section.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no blow my eye. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine.
All right, so there's like a boxiness that's probably somewhere here in the 500 range or so.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no blow my eye. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no negative energy kill my vibe. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no blow my eye.
And if I want these guys to really cut through, I can sit here and do like a 12K boost. Did I do something foolish here? Yes, I did. Let me go back. I didn't use that band. Okay, so that's where I was. Yep, got to be careful here. All right, here we go.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling.
As soon as I saw that up there, I said, wait a minute, I had used this already. So, okay, here we go.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good.
There we go. That sounds more like it. Okay.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no blow my. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no negative energy kill my vibe.
Now, I think I definitely need to use the high
I'm
pass filter.
feeling good, I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no blow my. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling.
All right, so hopefully I didn't mess up the lead vocal sound. Let's have a listen.
I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make nobody blow my. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no negative energy kill my vibe. Me have to keep me energy high, for real. Me no biggie, me no ready fi die. But if I sound just say, then me ready fi fly. Like a bird in the morning, me take to the sky and spread me wings like a eagle. I soar high over people. Play this in your vehicle. Your headphones or your Bluetooth speaker. This a the stress reliever. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make nobody blow my. I'm feeling good, I'm feeling fine. Now make no negative.
Yeah, I really really dig this EQ. It's only just come out. Just had a day to kind of play around with it and kind of dig into it. But I really love it. Like very transparent. Very clean, very musical sounding, perfect mastering EQ. Obviously, you can understand why it's very popular as it is, and just another amazing addition. Especially if you're into the plugin alliance for a lot of their mastering plugins. But this is something that has a lot of uses, especially with the extra 2 bands that are over here, where even with a MEQ, where you have the mid-range EQs with the peak, dip, peak sections. It still doesn't, it's not going to give you all the things that you need, but to have this extra section over here to kind of spackle in the gaps for, what you get with the basic EQP1A kind of settings with the Pultec. It's really, really beautiful thing. So, yeah, I'm digging it. So there you have it. From the Plugin Alliance, brand new one, Bettermaker. I guess they're a new addition to the Plugin Alliance. So, yeah, Bettermaker EQ232D. It is Mixing with Mike's Plugin of the Week.